Hey everyone, welcome back to DIY Buddy Guy. Today's project is kind of unique. I have a 93 Ford F-250 here, and it used to have vacuum brakes. And this is the vacuum brake assist. When people say power brakes, there's two basic kinds of power brakes. You have vacuum, and then you have hydroboost. This truck used to have vacuum. Now it has hydroboost. The challenge to this project was in 93, Ford didn't particularly make a hydroboost brake system. In fact, that hydroboost right there is from a Chevy. I couldn't find one for 93, so I had to go to a 96 Chevy. And took a little bit of modification, but I can show you how I did it. The reason why I converted from vacuum to hydroboost is most vehicles who have the vacuum brake boost here on the firewall have used vacuum from the air intake into the motor to create vacuum for the vacuum brake power assist. And this used to have that, and this was the vacuum brake right here. This, however, is a diesel motor, and most diesels are turbocharged. And although there is a vacuum going into the air intake, with a turbo, there's positive pressure going into the motor. So what the manufacturers or engineers decided to do was put a vacuum pump here. Well, having replaced 5 vacuum pumps in a year, different brands, different companies, manufacturers, the cheap ones, the expensive ones, vacuum pumps kept going bad. So what I did was I put a new vacuum pump on here, and rather than using the vacuum pump to supply the vacuum to what used to be the vacuum power brake, the power assist for the brakes, I installed the hydroboost. What it took to get the project done was two things. I had to fabricate a little bit of metal to make the hydroboost bolt up to the truck, and then it was the plumbing. And it was very difficult to find how the plumbing goes on these hydroboosts, so I'm hoping my YouTube video editor will make a separate video explaining the plumbing. What I basically did was actually really simple. So the way that this system works is the hydro brake boost on vehicles uses the power steering pump, which is belt driven down here, to supply power high pressure fluid, particularly power steering fluid, through the hydro boost, and then it still uses that same fluid for the steering box, which you might be able to see down there somewhere. Let me get a flashlight on it. Right down there is the steering box, where those fittings are, right down there. So the way the plumbing used to go in this truck, it would go from the power steering pump, it would send high pressure fluid through this hose right down to the steering box. It would come out of the steering box and then go right back to the power steering pump. The only part of that I modified was this hose. Instead of the fluid going from the power steering pump to the steering box, it goes from the power steering pump through the hydro boost and then to the steering box. This is high pressure in the hydro boost, this is high pressure out of the hydro boost, down to the steering box, and then returns to the power steering pump. However, on this hydro boost, there is a third port here, and that's the low pressure return. So the power steering pump supplied high pressure power steering fluid to the steering box, and then would return low pressure to the power steering pump. So what I did was I took the high pressure side, put it through the hydro boost, and then into the steering box, and then out of the steering box back to the power steering pump. And I took this low pressure line from the hydro boost and I teed it into the return on the power steering pump. And I'll try to get a flashlight down there to show you. There's just a simple brass tee. It's right down there. I'll probably throw a drawing in here somewhere at some point. But it's this hose right here that tees into the bottom side of the power steering pump where the low pressure return is. And overall, it was a really simple project, a little time consuming. I found a company that said that they would make a hydro boost for this particular model truck. It would take them 4 months and over $1,000. I did it myself in a week and for just around 600 bucks, and used all the same fittings and parts they would have, except I did it myself, and it works great. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.